Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at American Splendor number 2 through 4, Harvey Pekar's autobiographical comic that he self-published starting in the mid-70s and going all the way up to his death in the 2000s. It's drawn by various artists, including Robert Crumb, probably the most famous contributor to these comics. But Harvey Pekar, I believe the first issue came out in 1976. He was just doing something that nobody had thought of doing before, just basically chronicling the mundane details of an ordinary person's life, the little things that happen every day, to kind of embarrassing thoughts and incidences that happen to your average person in a day. And sometimes it is a little dull. We're so used to the media we consume. It's usually exciting. It's usually takes us out of our everyday existence and shows us things that you often don't see. But there's also, I gotta say, there is something to this. Like rereading these last night for the first time in years, maybe because I'm older now, and even though Harvey Pekar is a young man in these stories, because he's depicting his life pretty much at the time, he was already like a cranky old man. And some of the things he thinks about, I'm just like, oh man, just stupid, bitter musings. I think we all might find ourselves doing that. Hopefully, maybe, I hope it's not just me. But sometimes, thinking thoughts that you're not proud of. And he lays it all out to bear. He's totally unfiltered, doesn't try to put himself in this great light. In fact, a lot of these stories, he comes off as a huge asshole. Basically, I wouldn't want to hang out with Harvey Pekar when he was a young man. I'd be like, you're a jerk. But that's what makes it kind of fascinating. So let's crack these open and check them out. I can only imagine what it would have been like in 76, the first issue, to read these. And just to be like, what is he doing? He's just telling a story about his day at work. Nobody did that before. So here's the second issue. The reason why I'm not looking at the first issue is because I don't own it, and I probably never will, because it's probably way too expensive for me to ever buy. But I do have scattered issues of American Splendor. I'm looking at 2 through 4 today. I have some other ones. Maybe in a year or so I'll look at the rest. But for now, I'm showing off what I got. So here's number 2. We have a cover by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. They did a lot of drawing for Harvey Pekar when he started. In fact, they're in every issue. They're definitely illustrate a lot of these stories. And this is just a total example. Sums up. Like, this isn't even a joke or anything. It's just a weird thing people say. How smart is she? I don't know. I guess she's about average. Average? Hey man, average is dumb. It's not like some great witticism but this is the way people talk. And love this logo, classic logo. And I did want to point out, this is just an odd thing. I don't think I've ever seen a comic priced at $1.15 before. I don't think there is another one. It's a very odd price. But, Harvey Pekar was publishing these themselves. He didn't know about the little rules of publishing and all that stuff. He was just trying to break even so he could put out another issue. We start off with Rollins on Mars. This is a story from 1976, even though this was published in 77. And this is just this co-worker of Harvey Pekar's who shows up all the time. And he's just this crazy guy who just says hilarious stuff. I wish I knew a guy this weird. That would be great going to work, knowing that you're going to hear some crazy shit. But this is drawn by Brian Bram, another artist who did a lot of stuff in these early issues. I've never seen him anywhere else. Harvey Pekar seems to collect these artists that sometimes they're just like, oh, you just do Harvey Pekar's comics. I never see them anywhere else. He has his own little ensemble team of artists. Next, we have the Harvey Pekar name story, and drawn by R. Crumb. And just look at this comic, though. The whole comic's like this. And it's just Harvey Pekar talking about how rare his name is. But then when he was living in Cleveland, he noticed that there was 2 other Harvey Pekars in the phone book. And this blew his mind. He never contacted them, but one day he did see the obituaries in the newspaper. I guess they were a father and son, and I guess within a year, both of them died. So now the next year, he was the only Harvey Pekar in the phone book. And then a year passed, and another Harvey Pekar popped up. Kind of, obviously, it's a monologue. He's just talking to us, telling us the story. It's interesting, like, who would think to put this in comic form? Like, yeah, it's just a guy talking to you. But the facial expressions, our Crumb is such a good cartoonist that it really does add a lot. Just the little slight changes in his face as he's talking. It's kind of amazing. It's almost like that movie, My Dinner with Andre, where you're like, there's 2 guys talking. This shouldn't be interesting. It should be a really boring movie. But it's not. Next, we have Guerrilla Theater. This is a story from '74. This is art by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. And we see Harvey's watching the news. It's a boring night. So he's just like, I'm going to go down to the corner. It seems like young Harvey Pekar didn't have a lot of money. He was pretty cheap. He would just like kind of walk around the streets. He knew everyone in the neighborhood. He gets invited to this kind of like bullshit chanting hippie thing by these 2 chicks, and he turns them down. He's just like, I'm busy. Yeah, I can't picture Harvey Pekar doing that. That's not his scene. So he goes to the theater, and I guess he knows the woman at the concession stand, Janie. So he just goes in just to say hi. He's not going to see the movie. He's just like, I'm bored. I just thought I'd chat with you. And then Freddie comes in. Freddie's a character we'll see a lot. At this time in Harvey's life, he's a regular presence. He's always got some crazy story. He's just got fired from his job again. And it sounds like he's a total fuck up. Everyone kind of knows it. This art is kind of like, nephew art, fanzine art. But I think for the most part, it's serviceable for these stories. It's like, it'll do. So the manager kind of kicks him out. He's like, guys, you can't hang around here all night. It looks bad. You guys hanging out in the lobby. So they decide to just hang out. And they're basically just hanging out in the street. And then Sid comes up. Sid's another one of the locals. And he's quite a character, too. He comes up, he's all complaining about something he heard in the news, about the Turkey rolling into Cyprus, invading it, and going on and on. So these guys are just hanging out, girl watching, just standing on the corner like a bunch of dopes. So he mentions to them that he's just finished moving, but he left some stuff. His friend left some stuff on his porch for him. He was getting rid of. He says, guys, I got this detached retina thing. Could you guys help me move this shit? The doctor says I shouldn't even be walking around. So they go. I guess there's a couple chairs and this giant rug. And the rug's been sopped through with water. It's totally... And they're just like, we should just throw this rug away. He's just like, no, I could dry it out. It's a really nice rug, apparently. So they all lug this thing. And... yeah, the whole time they're giving their buddy shit because he's such a fuck up. Freddie. And basically, this is just like everyday conversation they're having. The shit that, I mean, it's literally like you're a fly on the wall. I think Harvey Pekar just has a really good memory, and he just listens to what's around him, and he remembers how people talk. It's a very naturalistic style of writing, the dialogue. So they lug all the shit up to this guy's apartment. They bring the carpet up. He's just like, I'll leave it on the back patio. And it smells bad, but he still doesn't say he's going to throw it away. And so on his way home, he stops by the movie theater again to say hi to that girl, Janie. She's already left. And then he just is like, I guess I'll go home and watch some TV. I would just see him walking home all alone. That's the thing. There's a lot of autobiography guys like Dennis Eichhorn. They had really colorful lives. Harvey Pekar's life is very dull. It's nothing to write home about. But he decided to turn it into fiction. Well, not fiction, but you know what I'm saying, into art. It's I know some of you are probably saying, I don't want to read this shit. It looks boring. And I don't know why, but when I was reading these, I just wanted to keep reading them. I'm like, yeah, this is just like so weird that he's just so intricately detailing the mundane existence of everyday lives, you know? So this is Sid now is telling a story to the guys, how he was hitchhiking near the Gulf of Mexico, passed out in the back of this guy's truck. The guy woke him up in the middle of the night. He said, oh my God, I'm so excited. Look, I saw this sea animal washed up on the beach. And for some reason, they were both really excited about it. They tied it to the roof of the car. And then a little while later when they stopped, even though it was just an hour later, the fish was just reeked. It smelled horrible. And they realized, why were we so excited about this in the first place? So, of course, they ditched it on the side of the road. And he said this memory he's having is because the rug started to smell that bad, the mildewed rug. So he's like, yeah, guys, sorry I made you lug that thing. I ended up chucking it. Like, I should have done that, just like you guys told me. And then he basically says, but boy, I still think about that warm night near the Gulf of Mexico, the beautiful white beach. It seems like a dream to me. I don't know why, I just find this almost poetic. It's just an interesting way to end the story. Now we have this story called May 4th through 5th, 1970. This is drawn by Brian Bram, that guy. This guy's pretty damn crude, but also I find it serviceable for these kind of stories. So Harvey has a job kind of pushing papers at a hospital. I think it's a veterans hospital. So he works for the government. He's got a kind of cushy government gig. And we just see him walking around at work. He knows all the old guys who work there, chats with them every day. And this one guy, Harvey asks him about his son. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to point this out. His name tag says Karl Oleski. For some reason, in a lot of these stories, Harvey Pekar uses different pseudonyms for himself. It's obviously him, but he doesn't call himself Harvey Pekar in any of the stories. Well, some of the stories, but most of them, he's got some different nom de plume. 3 or 4 different ones, too, not just the same. So, I guess that this old guy, his son, is doing really good in the contracting business. But he used to be an accordion player who even recorded a song or two. So basically Harvey's talking about like, it's kind of a shame he didn't stick with his music. It was really good. But he said that his son was doing a gig in Las Vegas. The orchestra leader, some big shot, invited him up to his hotel room for a drink. And the guy says, you know what that guy want to do? He want to fuck Leo in the ass. So it just soured him to the whole music industry. He just left Las Vegas, came back to Cleveland, and, settled down as a contractor. They get in this little argument about Kent State, because that was the big thing in the news then. That's why this is called May 4th through 5th, 1970. And basically, this Italian guy. I should get his name. God damn it. His name, I think, is like Luigi. Some very... Oh, Mr. Lucarelli. Mr. Lucarelli is very old school. And I just want to say real quick, I wanted to interrupt myself because I said earlier that, like, yeah, this art's pretty crude, but it'll do, but I don't know. This is pretty bad, some of this art. Very, like, fanzine art. Okay, so Mr. Lucarelli, very old school. He thinks those hippies, whatever. Maybe the cops should shoot him. They're terrible, you know? He's a patriotic American now. And Harvey's trying to argue, and so I'm like, well, they have a right to protest. I mean, this is the democratic country, right? And then they argue about other stuff. Apparently, Mr. Lucarelli knows guys in the mob. He's kind of palsy-walsy with them. So Harvey brings that up. And so I guess May 4th in 1970, that's when the demonstration started. Now, the next day, May 5th, that's when the National Guardsmen just opened fire into the crowd, killing 4. Some of them weren't even protesters. So when he gets to work, one of the doctors says, hey, Harvey, would you wear one of these armbands? We're wearing these to commemorate the students that got murdered yesterday. Harvey says, sure. It's got a peace sign on it. Mr. Lucarelli sees it, and it's like a fucking red flag to a bull. They start arguing. And Mr. Lucarelli's actually arguing, like, those kids deserve to be shot. Those policemen were just protecting themselves. Those kids were going to throw rocks at them. And Harvey just says, listen, I don't want to argue about this. Let's just agree to disagree. But obviously he's steamed that someone could actually believe this, that those kids deserve to be shot. Even when he tells Mr. Lucarelli that one of them was an innocent bystander, he's like, they shouldn't have been there anyway. So Harvey goes off with the cartoon symbol of being pissed off hovering over his head. And Harvey's basically like, man, I don't even want to talk to that guy anymore. God, what a fucking... this thug. So he actually passes him by in the cafeteria without saying hi. And we see Mr. Lucarelli looking back sad. Just like, oh, Harvey's mad at me. And Harvey keeps giving him the cold shoulder. Finally, at the end of the day, Mr. Lucarelli tries to be chummy. Harvey gives him an icy hello. And he's like, well, you mad at me? And he says, yeah, you jumped down my throat just because I said, I don't believe that students should be shot. And so Mr. Lucarelli backs off. He's like, oh, okay, it's no big deal. Let's just be friends again. And Harvey says, fine. As long as you admit I got a right to my opinion. And he, God, what's going on with his hand? That's crazy. It's like an alien crustacean. And he says, sure, we all got a right to our own opinion. He says, oh, okay. Well, I got to go home. See you later, okay? And I love this as Harvey walks away and Mr. Lucarelli looks at him. You could tell by both of their facial features that Harvey's never going to be, they're never going to be pals again. And even though Mr. Lucarelli has these shitty beliefs, he's all sad. He's like, oh, he was kind of a pal of mine. Next, we have Jiving with Jack the Bellboy as he goes about hustling size. So Jack the Bellboy is another alter ego of Harvey Pekar. This, as you could probably tell already, art by our Crumb. So Jack is an obsessive-compulsive jazz record collector. He has to have every record ever put out. He basically lives so frugally just so he can afford to supply his record habit. He's a cheap date whenever the rare times he gets a date. He eats peanut butter sandwiches every night just so he can, spend hundreds of dollars on records. So one of the ways he supplements his income so he can buy more records is he picks up records really cheap when he sees them, because he's always going to record stores and records that he doesn't like, but he knows he can sell. So he's got this total side business hustling records, mostly to his co-workers. So at his job, he has a lot of freedom. He just pushes a cart around. He makes his own, he's his own boss pretty much. So he has a big thing of records, and everyone he sees in all the departments, he just says, hey, I know you like that, whatever, that bebop stuff. I got a record here for you, $2. So he knows what everyone likes on the floor. He's a good salesman, and he just sells them all these records. Of course, there's just little conversations in the cafeteria, just like in every day. Finally, he gets called into the office, and they basically say, you got to stop selling records. We've been turning a blind eye, but really the boss doesn't like it. And so once again, Harvey is, even though Jack the bellboy is stymied, he thinks to himself, maybe I could sell them in the parking lot. Next, we have these little things he has in these early issues, just called vignettes. This one's, these are drawn by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. And it's just little things he noticed. We see this band playing folk music, and this guy's chatting with them. And then we see these hot women on the street just talking about another girl. Like, they're so random. Next, we have Roller Coaster to Nowhere. This is art by Gary Dumm solo. It's a pretty cool logo there. So once again, he's using another pseudonym. And this is about him when he's, like, younger. And pretty much Harvey Pekar seems like he was a greaser, as they used to call him. Back in the late 60s when he was a teenager. Greased up his hair, or at least his friends did. But they're just a bunch of, like, no good nicks, these kids. Always trying to just get laid. But they're all just, like, crude, sexist jerks, basically. So they're at this amusement park. Their scheme is they buy lots of tickets, and they just go up to girls and be like, hey, you want to go on this ride with me? I got a ticket for you. And they're all getting rejected left and right because they're a bunch of losers. And this is just to show you their mentality. They're like, Christ, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with these bitches out here. They're so unfriendly. They must be on the rag or something. It's like, no, you guys are creeps. So I guess the Harvey character here, he basically says, I'm going to go get some popcorn. Because nothing's working out. None of these girls are, biting. But then the two guys, his two friends, actually find two girls who want to go on a ride with them. Now, Harvey's totally worried that they're going to ditch him because they drove him out there. They're like, yeah, if they get these girls, they're not going to let me get in the car. I'll be the fifth wheel. So they go on the rides. And then as soon as it's done, the girls are like, actually, we got to get home. And, of course, these guys are just like, hey, we gave you a free ticket. You at least owe us your phone numbers. And the girls are just like, nah, sorry. And they're so butthurt. They're like, man, totally taking advantage of us. They should have at least made out with us a little for taking them on a ride. And then the Harvey character's like, you were going to fucking leave me. I'm glad you didn't hook up with those girls. So this was written by Harvey in 1972. Next, we have another Gary Dumm illustrated story. This is called A Memory. And we see Harvey hanging out with his buddy. Gary Dumm's got some chops. That's a really good face right there. I mean, some of the panels, he doesn't have it down yet. That guy would continue to do, God, all the way up till recently, I think. He would draw these like self-published mystery type comics, and he got pretty slick. Still not well, slick might not be the word, but he got pretty consistent. In these early comics, he's kind of all over the place. Sometimes the face will look really amateurish, but then he's obviously got some skills. So Harvey tells a story about working in his father's grocery store as a kid. He used to deliver groceries to people's houses. And he remembers this thing this old black guy said to him for all this time. I can't say it because I'll say the N-word. He says, that's one thing N-words do. They'll build churches because they see a site for a church. And then the old man walked off, but he never forgot that line. Just one of those weird things that sticks in your head. I think we all have stuff like that. Of course, not that weird, but now this story is interesting. It's Ozzie Nelson's open letter to Crumb. This is also Gary Dumm art. Story written in 1972, it says. But this shows that, like, at first, Harvey Pekar wasn't just like straight autobio. Like, this is my life. Sometimes he does weird little things like this that really you can't say is autobio. But he's using Ozzie Nelson from Ozzie and Harriet to be the mouthpiece for what he believes, basically. And we see Ozzie Nelson. He starts off by saying, "Yeah, I've been hearing about you, man. How the Ralph Bakshi guy ripped off your Fritz the Cat cartoon and you took your name off of it." He's talking to our Crumb. And he says, "You think your, public image is screwed up? What about me? For years, I played this dope whose wife just led him around by his nose, and his kids made fun of him. And I never seemed to work. I was a laughing stock. But whatever. I didn't bitch about it." I guess he was a successful band leader in the 30s and 40s. I had no idea he was. And he's just talking about how, I was pretty cool. I played with, Count Basie and shit. But now I'm just a big jerk that everyone laughs at. And I learned to live with it. You know why? Because I made a lot of money being a big dummy. Such a weird idea for a comic. Because I think he was already friends with R. Crumb at the time. Maybe he wasn't. No, he was. He met R. Crumb back when he was really young. And it's just weird that he would make this comic kind of saying, "Quit your whining, R. Crumb. Shut the hell up." Next we have this zoology. Wait, is that you ever look at a word that you've seen a million times and now zoology? This is art by Brian Bram again. Yeah, this guy's really unpleasant to look at sometimes. Some of this art is like really, And this is basically just a weird, it's just, this woman's asking her if a deer's antlers are made of wood. And Harvey's just amused by how dumb the question is. This is kind of an interesting one too, where I guess this is a historical anecdote about how the Spanish Emperor Manuel I of the House of Rodriguez, they planned an invasion of England after the Armada failed. And so he takes this to be, he kind of extrapolates that the members of the House of Rodriguez were exiled to Buffalo, New York in 1687. They returned to seize power in 1978 after Franco died. And it's just this like goofy homage to Spain Rodriguez. And this is drawn by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. But I actually thought that was Spain. I was like, wait, did Spain draw this? That's a pretty good pastiche. And it just shows all these like, basically the kind of guys Spain would hang out with, these biker dudes and street guys. Just like hanging out, planning this supposed invasion. Very weird, like surreal idea. But that's the kind of stuff he would do in the early issues. It wasn't all just, straight autobio. Here's number 3. This time we got another cover by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. And once again, it's not that pithy a comment or anything. It's just like, people say shit like that, I guess. He has this thing, travel tips, Chicago's great restaurants, with art by Gary Dumm. There's one on the inside back cover too. And it's just him going to Chicago and saying, this hamburger joint was really good. And basically to Harvey Pekar, a good restaurant is just, it's cheap. So he's like, yeah, you can get a lot of great food for under $1.50. Nice place. I really love this story. Standing behind old Jewish ladies in the supermarket lines. Art by Art Crumb. And he's just talking about the whole science of going shopping. He hates shopping. He hates all these old Jewish ladies in his neighborhood. They're always haggling and harassing the checkout women. There's always some issue about the prices or their food stamp or their coupons. And Harvey Pekar says, I'm Jewish myself, but man, I'm cheap, but I got limits. These women are crazy. So he's talking about the whole science of like how to pick a line to get in. Like, yeah, there's only one person in that line, but it's an old Jewish lady who's probably going to hold up the line for 10 minutes or something. It's weird because in the decades after that, I've heard so many comedians riff on this concept. So here's one of these ladies just going on and on. Harvey just leaves the line. He's like, fuck it. He knows all the checkout women. He knows who are the good ones, who are the bad ones. So he knows who to avoid. So he gets home, he realizes he forgot 2 crucial items. So he's got to go back to the grocery store. And so there's this old Jewish lady lying in front of him, and she actually surprises him. She says, hey, you only have 2 items. You want to get ahead of me? And he says, oh, that's okay. In fact, you don't have much more than I do, but that's really nice of you. And he's totally surprised. He says, maybe she's the exception that proves the rule. She's taller than most old Jewish women. Maybe she's a mutant. He finally gets up to pay for his stuff, and he sees the old Jewish lady looking at her receipt. And he's like, up, here it comes. And the woman actually just says, excuse me, miss, you gave me a quarter too much. And this woman, who Harvey knows is the most incompetent checkout girl there, she basically doesn't want to admit that she screwed up. So she is just basically saying, no, that's not our quarter. I gave you the right change. And Harvey's like, basically, yeah, she fucked up, but she didn't want to admit it. I don't know why simple, mundane shit like that. I love it. So now we see Harvey. He's at a low point. It's winter. And he's calling his ex-wife up. And even basically telling her how lonely he is. I guess they've been pretty chummy, it sounds like, from the dialogue. But then Harvey says, I still have feelings for you. You think maybe we could try to get back together? She says, hey, I'm involved with someone now. That can't happen. And then Harvey just starts saying, oh, fuck you, you lousy bitch. He's such a dick. Because his girlfriend, his ex-wife was being all nice and compassionate. And because she doesn't want to date this asshole again, he's all like... And then even when he gets off the phone, it's not like he's like, oh, God, I shouldn't have done that. He really is just like, rotten bitch. Didn't want to go out with me. But he does say to himself, I shouldn't lose my temper. I think chicks are scared of me. So he's so depressed, he just goes to bed early. And this one is pretty much just him thinking about how just miserable he is. He wakes up to relax, he jerks off, and then he's got to get up for work. And the whole time he's just like, I don't want to get out of this bathtub. I don't want to go to work. I think I forgot to tell you guys who drew this story. This is another Greg Budget and Gary Dumm piece. I definitely noticed that I like it when Gary Dumm draws by himself more than the inking over Greg Budget. The other reason why I can totally understand if people don't want to read this stuff, it's a little too real. I mean, it's not happy. It's just him thinking about how much his life is kind of shitty, or it's just not that great. I think so many of us think that. And when you go to, you read fiction or media or whatever, you want to escape that shit. But there's no escape in here. But he does at least come to some kind of plan. He's just like, I've been drifting. but I'm going to get a good government job. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to fill out the applications. I'm going to do this, do that. So at least he has like a path. And the moral at the end is, man looks wherever he can for hope. And well, he did get that job, so, you know. Awakening to the terror of the same old day. This is another one drawn by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. So we see Harvey walking down the street. I'm sure he's got a different name, though. And I guess the first steady relationship he's had in a long time just ended. Basically, this woman just said, yeah, I'm leaving town. I enjoyed the time I spent with you. And so he just like plays like, okay, gotta go. You know, just like a total jerk, you know, like. And of course he says, rotten bitch. He's such a terrible young man. He's such a jerk. What fucking nerve she has. He's so unself-aware of also what a jerk he is. It's kind of weird that someone who is so thinking about his life so much that he even puts it on paper, and yet he's really just like, it's not like he ever regrets these thoughts. Like, ah, man, she's not a bitch. I'm just being a bitter, angry jerk. You know, he's like, nope, that woman rejected me. She's a rotten bitch. And he believes that. So this is another sad comic where a lot of it's in his head. Just thinking about how lonely he is. He has a crazy dream that even magnifies how lonely he is. The dream is obviously about being lonely. So he finally wakes up. It's time for work again. And he feels rotten. I definitely know that feeling of having a shitty dream. Like, I have dreams where I'm at work and I'm having a bad day. Like the dishwasher won't work. It's all frustrating. And then I wake up and actually have to go to work. And I'm like, I felt like I just did a full shift. A really bad shift in my head. So he gets to his job. He sees these guys on the loading dock. They're talking about the football game. He has a nice interaction with the secretary, who's a real sweetheart. And kibitzes with a coworker about another coworker. Talks to another guy who says, what'd you do this weekend? I said, I went to the track. He broke even. Harvey says, well, it was a nice day anyway. At least you got some fresh air. Fuck the fresh air. I ain't going to the track for my health. That was funny. And then he realizes that, you know, I kind of feel better. I need this job. Going to work helps me keep from going nuts. When you're alone all the time, like I am on the weekends, you start concentrating on your problems, thinking you're the only person in the world. I think a lot of us can relate to that. They say studies show that people are actually happiest at work, even though they don't want to go on the surface level. But deep down, they're like, yeah, I'm comfortable here. And I guess if you're married or something, it's different. But if you're a person who lives alone, a lot of people actually find comfort and solace in work. I don't know about that. I don't think I'm there yet. I love being at home alone. Okay, so now another story by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. Short weekend. So Harvey goes to the mailbox. Once again, there's no mail. This really bothers him. That was a thing. You young kids might not know this, but people actually liked getting mail. There's another one where it's all in Harvey's head, him just musing about life. He's thinking some heady shit. He's like, what's it like after you die? Is there an afterlife? What's the whole purpose of life? And it's 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And he just says, I'm going to go home and watch some TV. And basically that's the end of his weekend. It's implied that he's just going to waste the whole weekend doing that. Next we have Getting Adjusted. This is artwork by Gary Dumm solo. And this is just about Harvey Pekar hanging out with the wife of his pal. He's not in, so she says, "Come on in." He says hi to the kid, Jeff, the kid. And this one's a very weird story. So this woman here, let's see if I can get her name. Well, the friend's name is George. So hopefully the name will pop up. I guess I'll just have to call her George's wife. So he's talking about she's going to go on to fly down to Washington, D.C. with her kid because her mother is part of like the POW MIA movement. So they're going to protest in front of the White House to bring our boys home. And then she starts talking about how she really loves her job and they're really nice to her there, even though it's not much pay. Her husband's, George, is a metal worker, so she's talking about George's job. It's just like a total normal visit to someone, you know? Some weird stuff in this. Gary Dumm. Some of these panels are kind of odd. So then she goes on this long thing about how she can't believe she's actually like in Cleveland finally. I guess her and George are a bunch of hippies. They moved from San Francisco. They hated it at first. She hated the cold. She didn't like the neighborhoods. But then she goes on this whole rant about N-words. You know what I'm talking about. I can't say it. I don't want to say it. She's just very... the word comes very easily from her lips. And she's just basically saying, yeah, the old neighborhood, it was just, we were the only white people there. I hated all those N-words. They're all bastards. They're being mean to us, throwing snowballs at us, and making fun of us. And Harvey even says something like, you're pretty free and easy with that word. But now she's finding that she likes her, people in Cleveland. She finds them unpretentious, different than San Francisco people. It's also, she's in a more white neighborhood. So it's just like, wow, this woman's just a blatant racist. Even though she seems like this sweet lady, that's just so weird. Harvey is just so honest in this stuff. I mean, yeah, I guess there's people like this. Now we have a few more of those vignettes. I'm sorry, vignettes? Right? It's vignettes. Well, Gary Dumm and Gary Budget draw these. Sorry, Gary Dumm and Greg Budget. Yeah, these are just pretty weird. Just little moments that he's overheard. Next we have Jack the Bellboy and Mr. Boats. This is obviously art by Crumb. God, it's kind of a shame Harvey Pekar couldn't get Crumb to draw all the stories. So here we meet another one of, let's just call him Harvey, one of Harvey's eccentric co-workers, this guy, Mr. Boats. Now, Mr. Boats is going to be in lots of episodes, even all the way up to, the 80s. He's one of the main characters in American Splendor after Harvey. So he's just like this kind of interesting old man who's got a funny way of looking at the world. So a lot of it is just his discussions, Harvey seems to really like him. Harvey brings up that guy Rollins, who we saw earlier, and Mr. Boats has no time for Rollins. He's like, oh, that kid's a fool. He ain't got no good sense. So, of course, Harvey tries to sell him a record. No dice. And that's all the strip is. It's just this amazing character. He's actually really interesting, this Mr. Boats character. He's such an oddball, but in a very non-odd way. This is Overheard in the Cleveland Public Library, art by Gary Dumm. And this is this guy, this poet, this kind of, I think he's like kind of homeless. He goes to the local library to have them evaluate his poetry. And the librarian's like, I'm not really qualified for this, sir. Maybe you could go to the local arts council. And the guy gets all sad. He's like, nobody likes my poetry. And the woman, to try to console him, basically just says, sir, there's nothing wrong with writing poetry that rhymes. And he walks off. Stetson shoes. This is about Harvey being a cheapskate and being broke all the time because he's a record addict. This is drawn by Gary Dumm, by the way, solo. And some of this looks pretty nice. You can see Gary Dumm progressive throughout here, but then still some faces are kind of clunky. So his shoes have holes in them. It's raining in Cleveland. His feet are getting wet, so he says he's got like no money, barely any money. So he goes to the secondhand store, and they actually sell shoes for 50 cents each. And he actually finds these amazing shoes, these Stetsons. And then he has a flashback to when he was a greaser. And back in those days, all the greasers loved Stetsons. They'd spend half of a week's paycheck on Stetsons gladly. But, you know, now nobody buys them anymore. Nobody cares. So he finds them for 50 cents. Amazingly, they fit. And he has a great day. That's all it takes to make Harvey Pekar happy. This one's called Traditional Male Chauvinism, art by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. And once again, he's talking to Freddie. Freddie's been trying to pick up women at his encounter sessions at the church. And these were basically group therapy things that were popular in the 70s. But he would just go there and be a dick, figuring he'd get attention. And so they threw him out. He'd say shocking things like, yeah, a man should never pay a woman's way on a date unless he gets asked from her. Then at least he would be paying in appreciation and not bribery. So of course they were like, it's mostly women at these meetings, so they're like, get the fuck out of here. And Harvey just says, well, Freddie, you're a controversial dude. This is Mr. Lopez's gift, Mr. Lopez's gift. Beautiful art by our Crumb. I really love this. This is when Harvey was a little boy. He had a neighbor named Mr. Lopez, who actually grew up in the Amazonian jungle, but at a young age moved to America, lived like the normal American life. But he just came back from a trip to Brazil, and he's telling them all about the Indians in the forest there, and how they're always fighting each other. It's very dangerous. Man, I love the way he draws this guy's face. I mean, this is so good. And then he says, oh, I got a poncho. Do you want this poncho I got in Brazil? And Harvey's just kind of like, oh, I guess if you have nobody else to give it to, sure. It's very mundane. Once again, just Harvey remembers talking to this guy once when he was a kid. Decides to make a comic. Here's Rollins on time. Rollins this guy's such a fucking moron. He's pretty funny. Just another dumb thing Rollins did where all of his coworkers are like, you're as crazy as a motherfucker, you know that? But just beautiful art, Crumb art, as usual. And here we have another one of those travel tips. This is another little crappy Mexican chain restaurant in Chicago, which I guarantee you is not good. But not only is it cheap, but apparently all the waitresses are really hot. So that's in the Harvey Pekar restaurant guide. That's a big plus. Number 4, beautiful art Crumb cover. And we see him and art Crumb haggling over records, doing a trade. And both of them are thinking to themselves, what a sucker. I'm getting the better end of this deal. We start off with another Rollins story where he's just spouting this crazy nonsense. It's kind of fascinating though. He's a dummy, but he's also kind of like maybe a genius deep down. It's called Visualize, Actualize, Realize. Just so much. There's a lot of great art Crumb art in here. Next we have the young Crumb story. This is really interesting. It's just about Harvey meeting young Robert Crumb back in the early 60s. They both liked records. They were both collectors, so that's how they met. They met through Art Crumb's great pal, Marty Pals. He was kind of a link with them. And more they started hanging out. Our Crumb got the job at the American Greetings, the greeting card company, or whatever it's called, Hallmark. And he'd, go shopping with our Crumb and go to secondhand stores. And then he watched our Crumb get more and more popular. He kind of became a star in Cleveland. People would always be like, oh, did you hear Crumb's back in town? Like he was kind of known, hanging out with the Bohemians. Crumb with his first wife, when she first marries. So Harvey goes to visit him in San Francisco. He's amazed at how laid back and kind of groovy our Crumb is now, because he was such a clean-cut square. So Harvey has his divorce. The years move on. He's incredibly lonely after that. It really hit him hard. Our Crumb sent him a letter, try to make him feel better. Some gifts. And then also he met Robert Armstrong through our Crumb because they were in that band together. So they got him into comics again. He didn't really like comics since he was a kid. He wasn't really that into them. But they started handing him undergrounds and he was like, oh, these are pretty good. And so he started writing comics. Just, on his kitchen table, single page things. And he showed them to our Crumb and Robert Armstrong, and they kind of liked it. So with that encouragement, they actually kind of offered to draw him for him. So his one-pagers were in comics, underground comics, all the way back to the early 70s. You see him pop up here and there in various anthology titles. And, they're drawn by Robert Armstrong, our Crumb. So now it's kind of just turns into Harvey's story. Harvey takes over the spotlight and just says, yeah, if I never met our Crumb, I might have never put out this comic. He does have an interesting musing. He's like, on the other hand, think of all the people I didn't meet who could have gotten me into stuff I'm not even thinking about. It's something to think about. Here's more our Crumb, how I quit collecting records and put out a comic book with the money I saved. And this is just Harvey talking about his record addiction. Every week he'd be getting auction lists, pouring over them. He didn't have room for his records anymore in his apartment. A lot of them he wasn't even listening to. He was just obsessively collecting. And he got invited to his friend's radio show at a college station. So he's like looking through their library and he sees 6 records that he really wanted that he'd have to pay for. So he does this elaborate scheme to steal them. He takes them to the men's room, hides them in this toilet paper box, and then later on he can pick them up on his way out. None the wiser. But then the men's room door is locked. And so he kind of realizes, he has this epiphany. He's like, I gotta quit this record collecting. Look, I'm a fucking wreck. I'm broke all the time. And the next morning he's like, yeah, I still feel this way. And if without the money I'm spending on records, I could put out my own comic. So that's how American Splendor came to be. This is an argument at work. This is illustrated by Jerry Shamray. This is one of those artists who's really good. As you can see, he's a good cartoonist. I've never seen him anywhere else. I've never seen him draw for anyone except for Harvey Pekar. So in this story, his name is Herschel for some reason, but it's obviously Harvey Pekar. In fact, Jerry Shamray draws him looking just like Harvey Pekar. You've seen photos of him as a young man. So he's talking about Harvey. It's just basically he's talking about Harvey Pekar's life. How he loves to read. He writes some things. He has a file clerk job. It's almost as if we have never seen a Harvey Pekar story before. This is almost like a recap. Okay, this is where this guy is. And so he's really loves his writing, even though he barely gets paid for it. He writes various articles for jazz magazines, and he's trying to move into writing just about history and politics. And he gets a $250 from a newspaper for a 2-part article. So he's feeling pretty good about himself. And for once, he's just like, hey, I'm hot shit. He's even fantasizing about, yeah, maybe I can get more articles published and actually be a writer full time. So then he's feeling so cocky that there's this girl at work that he kind of likes. And he's just like, today, you know what, I'm going to ask her out today. So he asks her out first thing in the morning, and she obviously is just kind of like not into it. She's like, oh, I'm doing something this weekend. And he says, well, some other weekend? She says, we'll see. And Harvey actually says, what do you mean, we'll see? That's kind of interesting. It looks like a Spanish artist. Like this could be like Esteban Morata or Victor de la Fuente or something. So he, of course, it's Harvey Pekar, so he's just totally pissed off. He says, lousy cunt, I'm 10 times as smart as any guy should ever go out with. The nerve of her. Like, he's such an egomaniac. So he's totally angry. And then there's some little incident happens. He gets this huge argument with a coworker and he loses his shit. He's yelling at her. He's telling her to go shit in her hat. So if someone overhears, reports him to the supervisor. The supervisor calls him in. Harvey even tells himself, he's like, I'm in no mood to, back down. I'm going to give him, if he gives me crap, I'm going to give it back twice as hard. So even though he's in trouble, he's just like, fuck it. I'm going to go down blazing. So the supervisor seems really nice. He's like, Harvey, I've always liked your work. I've defended you a lot, but you can't go around. You got to watch your temper. If the director was in today and saw that, I mean, you could lose your job for shit like that. And Harvey's still not being that apologetic. He's just like, well, he keeps calling the woman a dumb bitch. He's like, if that dumb bitch starts something with me, I can't tell you how I'll react. I'll try. And finally, he kind of calms down and realizes, shit, I just jeopardized my job, which I love. I gotta do something. And so he just walks home. He probably won't change. Next is Out of the Past, another Jerry Shamray illustrated story. And this is him just, going through the files, and he sees a name he recognizes. Someone from his past. As earlier was noted, he worked in his dad's grocery store. Next door was a meat shop, a butcher shop. And, I mean, Harvey spends 2 pages just talking about his father, what a decent man he was, but his grocery store was always failing because the supermarkets came into town. And Harvey was just like, oh, I don't want to end up like this. But the guys next door, these brothers, the Svoboda, they're Czechoslovakians, they were just always very nice. So the next day, he looks at the poll chart, and it looks like Svoboda's coming in. He's in the waiting room. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm going to call him Steve because I can't pronounce that last name. So, and then the whole next few pages is him just walking back and forth like, yeah, should I talk to him? I should say hi. He was a good guy. But also, he's probably going to ask me, what are you doing now? And, he's got this lousy job. He likes it, but, he's a file clerk, and it's not something to be proud of. And maybe he'll ask about my writing, and I'll be like, yeah, I get no money for it. So he's going through his head all the things that'll be said in this conversation, and he's like, yeah, he's going to think I'm a big loser. So he ends up not talking to him at all. And then he leaves, and then he thinks, well, maybe I'll talk to him next time he comes in. But he won't. I kind of like this Jerry Shamray guy. Interesting art style. This is Riding the Dog, art by our Crumb. And this is when Harvey was on a bus with Sun Ra and his orchestra. It's kind of weird that they don't give you any context. I think I've just read this somewhere else. That's how I know that's Sun Ra. But also by the way he's dressed. And Sun Ra's just talking about whatever. Just talking about life. Talking about these other jazz guys. Kind of interesting. Here's another Jack the Bellboy strip. This is Jack the Bellboy meets Stu Ball. Another art Crumb strip. So we see Jack hustling his records. He figures he'll go into the soda shop and hit up Stu Ball. He knows he's got a bunch of turkeys in his collection. So he tries to sell him this band, which I think I'm pretty sure Harvey Pekar made this up. Melvin Laird and his atomic momsers. It sounds like they're like, it's almost like you can imagine they're like some Captain Beefheart, weird Frank Zappa type band. So he says, listen, the kid's like, I don't want to spend $2 if it's a piece of shit. He's like, listen, I'll let you take it home. If you like it, give me $2 tomorrow. If you don't, return it. The next day, the kid says, oh, take it back. It was awful. It was noise, not music. But Harvey Pekar's not beaten down. He says, remember, winners never quit. So he's going to keep hawking his records, foisting the shitty ones on people as long as he can. It's just a weird one, walking and talking. How this old man at work is so impressed because Harvey's always walking around. It's like, there he goes, the walking man. And then there's this other character that Harvey works with, just saying really colorful, fun shit. And when he relates this to another coworker, she says, that was a talking man. That's why it's the walking and talking. Very weird. This one's Lunch with Carmela, which is just Harvey's in the cafeteria talking to a new worker. He's like, that woman reminds me of Carmela. I guess you don't know her. She was before your time. And he's just talking about this woman who's very eccentric who worked there. She was very effective at her job and very, had senior status. So people just kind of put up with her weird eccentricities. She just like lay in the grass outside, waiting for the bus and fall asleep. And she's just a real character. Next is Sid's Detroit job interview, and this is art by Gary Dumm. This is Sid talking about how he'd pick up jobs at the audio industry, like just little short-time jobs in between being a taxi cab driver. Almost like he's just telling you how the whole employment situation was at these auto factories in the 70s, where they didn't want you to stay long enough to join the union, so they just hired these guys for 89 days, because after 90 days, they'd be eligible to be in the union, and they didn't want that. So he's talking about how he got his job at GM. He basically was just there to drive his friend. His friend was having a kid. He needed money quick. He's like, could you drive me around? I got to get a job. And then he got so bored, he filled out an application himself. So they actually called Sid in, and Sid didn't even want the job. So he basically just put his feet up on the desk, lit his pipe, and then he threw the match into the wastebasket, which caught fire. The guy there pours water on the fire and then kind of stares Sid down, and Sid stares right back at him. And he just basically acted like he owned the factory. And the guy said, you got the job. This is such a crazy story. I wonder if this would work if they're so used to seeing people all cowed that they'll be impressed if you're just all like, fuck you. So he got the job and his friend didn't. He was pretty pissed off. Of course, he quit. He got fired after 4 days because he didn't even want the job. Kind of an interesting story, though. Next, we have Going to Work. This is another Jerry Shamroy illustrated story. And this guy gives Harvey a ride one day because it's raining. And just they get in a kind of a mundane conversation. The art looks very different in this. I think Jerry Shamroy was rushed. That's my theory in this comic. Look at this panel. It's not even a good silhouette. It's a silhouette just to make it easier to draw, I guess, but it's not even a good one. So he's just chatting with this kid. Finds out a little about what this kid's up to. And then as he leaves, nice guy. I'll probably never see him again. Yeah, look how simple this is compared to the other strips. The Kissinger Letter, another R. Crumb drawn strip. This is Harvey's hanging around with this guy. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's Marty Pals. And he's telling him that when he was a youngster, he used to write letters to politicians and newspapers, and he got a letter back from Henry Kissinger. Basically, young Harvey wrote Henry Kissinger and to give him shit about his pro-Vietnam intervention beliefs. Said, you're full of shit, basically. And Henry Kissinger wrote him back and just said, thank you very much for writing. Intelligent men sometimes disagree. A very civil letter. But Harvey ripped it up and threw it away. He was so angry. And then a little while later, he was like, oh my God, Henry Kissinger's a big deal now. And he couldn't find the letter. It was long gone. So Harvey is wistfully remembering this letter. And he kind of gives credit to Henry Kissinger. He's like, yeah, he was a diplomatic dude. So this is interesting. It's a library story, take 2. So it's that same library story, but from a different point of view. So we see Harvey Pekar in the library, and that sad poet guy is like, nobody likes my poetry. She says the same thing, But now we see the after effect, at least an after reaction from Harvey. He's like, that was nice. She gave him some encouragement about his writing. And then he thinks back and says, there's nothing wrong with writing poetry that rhymes. Did I really hear that? It sounds like the punchline from a bad old joke. And this, I didn't even mention this. This is drawn by Michael T. Gilbert, which is kind of interesting. This is one of the first things he ever drew. You can totally see the Michael T. Gilbert thing going on, but it's kind of different than anything he was drawing at the time. Like this old lady's face, it seems like he's really trying to be more illustrative than normal. Maybe because he's drawing someone else's writing. And we have this little thing, disc topics, just showing record geeks again. Not that interesting. And this is art by Gary Dumm. So there you go, guys. American Splendor number 2, 3, and 4. I wish I had the other ones so we could look at them all at once, but whatever. Maybe one day I'll have them. Maybe one day I won't. But at least you can see these. I mean, basically all the American Splendors are pretty much just like this. He doesn't really change the formula much. So I hope you guys enjoyed looking at these with me, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.